Hey guys, tonight we journey into the cold, quiet dark of a place that rarely gets any historical spotlight, the underground potato cellars of the Inca Empire. You've just slipped through a narrow stone opening, and already the air is changing. The warmth of the sun vanishes behind you, replaced by a sharp, mineral chill that cuts right through your tunic. A faint scent drifts up the stone, and a whisper of something starchy. It's not exactly unpleasant, but it does make your nose twitch. You crouch slightly and step down into the gloom. Your fingers graze the stone wall to steady yourself as you move. Everything feels hushed here, the kind of quiet that makes your own breath sound obnoxiously loud. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, before we really get started, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing our sleepy little community from around the world now. Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in a Calcanan Inca storage cellar dug part way into the mountain. The walls are stone, packed tight and cool, perfect for keeping potatoes fresh for months, even years. You take slow, steady steps down a dirt ramp, where thin wooden torches flicker from iron sconces. Their light dances on baskets and sacks piled up like slumbering giants. These aren't just any potatoes. The Incas cultivated over 4,000 types. Of them waxy, dry, purple, gold, red speckled, some shaped like hearts, others like twisted claws. They're stored here like sacred treasure, because in this world they are. Above ground, you'd be toiling in fields or herding alpacas, but here your entire day happens beneath the earth. Not everyone's chosen for this task. It takes a strange kind of calm to work underground, day after day, with tubers for company and just the occasional guinea pig squeak echoing off stone. The light from the entrance fades fast, but you already know the layout. Low ceilings, cold air vents cut precisely into the walls, and rows of potato sacks organized by use, edibles, trade stock, tax tribute, spiritual offerings, rotten discards. There's even a pile called experimental that smells like someone took a risk that didn't pay off. You breathe deeply and exhale a puff of mist. It's cold enough down here that if you weren't moving, you'd freeze. And yes, even in your thick woven tunic, your knees are beginning to regret this assignment. A nearby worker grunts a hello. She's been here longer than you today, and her fingers are already stained brown from sorting. You nod back, too cold to speak. She goes back to rearranging sacks by weight. Some days it feels like you're playing potato Tetris. Others, it's more like potato Jenga, and losing means bruises and angry bosses. This isn't a dungeon, though it may look like one. It's a warehouse, a temple, a pantry for an empire. In a world without wheels or money, potatoes are currency, medicine, ceremony, and daily bread all rolled into one bumpy, lumpy form. The Inca road system, those intricate highways weaving through mountains, feeds right into these cellars. And from here, tubers go on to armies, priests, festivals, and hungry highland families. You reach the far end of the chamber, where the big storage baskets sit. Each one is woven from ichu grass, a kind of highland hay, and stacked taller than a man. You run your hand along the side of one, feeling the faint tremble of weight inside shifting slightly. It's not mice. It's just gravity, probably. Historians still argue whether the Inca rotated stock in a modern first-in, first-out style, or just dug through the top layers and hoped for the best. Either way, you've been told not to poke too deeply into the center unless you like the smell of ancient undead potatoes. In one corner sits a shallow stone bowl filled with powdered herbs. You pinch some between your fingers and rub it under your nose. Mint and eucalyptus meant to wake you up a little. Not exactly a double espresso, but better than nothing. Now the steward calls your name. He wants you to open one of the vent flaps carved into the upper wall. You reach for a lever made of llama bone and pull, slowly. Cold mountain air rushes in like a ghost, ruffling your tunic and sending a low whine through the chamber. You shiver, but the potatoes are pleased. They like it cold and dry, like a vampire's guest bedroom. You trudge back to the sorting bench and sit. Your task for now is to check for soft spots. You pick up one potato at a time and squeeze gently. If it gives way like a bruised apple, it goes in the discard pile. If it's firm and heavy, it's a keeper. You lose feeling in your fingers after the first dozen, but you keep going. The rhythm is weirdly calming. Squeeze, toss, squeeze. Stack dot. Every so often, you find one that looks like a tiny human face. You show it to the woman next to you. She squints, shrugs, and pockets it. Probably for her kids. Or maybe her gods. One more deep breath. The scent of chilled starch and straw fills your lungs. Outside, the sun blazes. But here, in the quiet dark, you found a strange kind of peace. Just you, the stone, and several thousand bumpy tubers waiting to be counted. Your hands are already sore from sorting when the steward taps your shoulder and nods toward a side tunnel. You know what that means. It's your turn to carry a new batch in. You sigh quietly, respectfully, and stand, brushing dust from your tunic. This tunnel is tighter than the main one, and a lot damper. The walls sweat faintly, moisture trickling down the stones, like the cellar is breathing slow, wet breaths. The temperature drops another few degrees, and the darkness feels heavier, like it's pressing against your back. You reach the end of the tunnel and find a team of porters huddled around fresh baskets. The potatoes inside are still coated in mountain dirt pulled just hours ago from chilly terraces several miles away. These baskets aren't light, either. Each one could carry a medium-sized dog, or at least several dozen particularly stubborn potatoes. You grab a basket strap, slinging it over your back with a practiced twist of your shoulders. The first step is the hardest, literally. Your legs protest, your spine mutters vague threats, but you push forward, one step, two, and then you're in the rhythm. The floor is rough, but your feet know the way. Each stone, each dip, each pebbles. Personality has etched itself into your muscle memory. You could walk this tunnel in your sleep, and some days you pretty much do. Above you, thin vents let in slivers of cold air and light, just enough to make shadows twitch on the wall like they're trying to escape. Potato delivery is sacred work. You don't just chuck these things on a pile. There's a system, and breaking it is a quick way to get yelled at, or worse, reassigned to llama store duty. You carefully empty your basket onto the intake mat, where a scribe waits nearby, marking details on a quipu knotted string system the Incas use instead of written words. Each color, knot, and spacing tells a story. Who brought the potatoes? From which region? And how much? Historians still argue whether these quipus were used strictly for accounting, or if they secretly recorded entire narratives like your bosses. Potato-based conspiracy theories, but the fact remains, no one questions the quipu scribe. He's got that I haven't blinked in 3 days energy. You bow slightly and step away. Now comes the weighing. On a platform made of flat stone and llama-hide ropes, the baskets are tested against standardized stones. The scales creak, but they're precise. The steward makes a few notes, nods, and waves you off. That batch passed inspection. You take a minute to flex your fingers. They've been stuck in that cold claw shape again. Happens every time at the back of the cellar. A crew of women prepares the potatoes for storage. First, they brush off the extra soil. Not all of it, just the clumps. Some dirt actually helps with preservation. Then they sort by type and color. It's kind of like sorting crayons. If crayons could grow eyes and taste like dinner, you sit with them now, working through a small mound of deep purple tubers known as oak. They're sweet, firm, and shaped like tiny bent fingers. You line them up by size, humming a tune under your breath. The woman next to you hums along, out of tune but confidently so. One potato has a bright red streak running through it. You hold it up. She raises her eyebrows and points to a small woven mat by the wall. That one's going to the priest. Red-streaked potatoes are considered signs, omens from the gods, or perhaps messages from the ancestors. What do the ancestors want? Who knows? Probably just a better snack offering. At lunchtime, well, the underground version of ITU, retreat to a dry alcove and pull out your food pouch. Inside, dried corn, a lump of salty cheese, and 2 boiled potatoes that still radiate a bit of warmth. You knock one against the wall to test its firmness. Solid. No mushy surprises. You take a bite. It's dry, mealy, and somehow satisfying. Like chewing on history. A few other workers join you. No one talks much. Words echo weirdly in this space, bouncing back like ghosts trying to finish your sentence. So you all sit in a circle of quiet munching, chewing in sync like some sacred potato cult. Someone breaks the silence by asking if anyone's seen the cursed potato again. The one with the spiral eyes. You laugh nervously. Last time someone made that joke, a rat died. Coincidence, sure. But you glance over your shoulder, just in case. One of the younger boys pulls out a quinoa freeze-dried potato that looks and feels like a rock. He bangs it on the floor. Soft enough to eat, he declares. You all stare as he bites into it, grimaces, and immediately regrets all his choices. Quinoa is an acquired taste. It's been left outside to freeze at night, then stomped flat to squeeze out the moisture, and left to freeze again. Nature's original freeze-dried survival snack. The Incas made quinoa for long journeys and military rations. It lasts for years, and tastes like that, too. But it's nutritious, and in a world without fridges or Uber Eats, quinoa is king. You finish eating, stretch your back, and head back toward the storage area. As you pass a side alcove, you glimpse something odder, tiny altar tucked into a corner, lit with a faint flame. A clay bowl holds 3 potatoes, shaped like animals, a snake, a condor, and a jaguar. The Inca Trinity. Offerings, clearly, not official ones, though someone down here is hedging their bets. You whisper a short prayer. You're not superstitious, just, let's say, respectfully cautious. You've been underground long enough to know this place hums with more than just cold air. Back at the sorting table, the work resumes. The rhythm of squeezing, stacking, and shifting potatoes carries you into a kind of trance. Occasionally, your mind drifts to the sunlit fields above, the sharp mountain wind, the sound of flutes in the evening. But mostly, you're just here, in the belly of the empire, sorting its lifeblood, one knobby handful at a time. the quiet doesn't last long. A low whistle from the tunnel mouth signals incoming cargo, and just like that, the lull snaps. You hop up, your knees creaking like old doors, and shuffle toward the outer corridor. It's your turn to help unload. Again, two porters enter, faces dripping with sweat despite the cellar's chill. They're carrying a particularly wide sling between them, the kind reserved for royal tributes or ceremonial batches. You recognize the red and gold cord wrapped around the handlets from the sacred valley, potatoes grown in soil blessed. During a solstice festival, the Inca elite doesn't mess around with bland carbs. You reach to help, fingers slipping a little on the damp rope. As the sling touches the ground, the rich earthy scent rises up and nearly knocks you flat. These potatoes are still warm, freshly dug, and dense with mineral-rich soil. You suppress a sneeze. No one wants to be the guy who sneezed on the Sun King's food. You and the others start unloading, one tuber at a time. Not because you're slow, but because this is the special batch, and the gods are allegedly watching. Even the scribe walks over to watch, his fingers pausing mid-knot as he studies the tubers. Some are black, like volcanic glass. Others are striped yellow and purple, like little edible zebras. It's the kind of variety that makes modern supermarket aisles look depressingly beige. You overhear one of the porters whisper that his cousin once saw a potato shaped exactly like the Inca emperor's face. He adds, "It got eaten anyway." The group chuckles, though a few look nervously toward the altar. There are rules about food offerings, and rules about laughing at food offerings. As you finish laying out the potatoes for weighing, you notice something: an entire basket of perfectly smooth potatoes. No lumps, no eyes, no signs of ever touching dirt. They gleam like river stones, too perfect to be real. You ask about them, and an older worker shrugs. They're from the southern cliffs. People say they only grow when there's thunder in the soil. You don't ask what that means. Some things are better left mysterious. You're pulled back to task by the arrival of the cellar master. He walks with a limp and a cane carved from shanta wood, the kind reserved for warriors and leaders. No one knows exactly what he did before this. Joe Brumers say he once led a supply line across a glacier with a single llama and a bag of salt, but now he rules the cellar like a potato pope. He stops by each pile, grunts in approval or swats someone's hand away if they're stacking too tightly. "Leave room for air," he mutters. "Even a potato needs to breathe." He turns to you and gestures toward a row of large clay jars lining the back wall. They're sealed with thick beeswax and cloth. Inside, potato paste. Not exactly delicious, but incredibly valuable. Used for binding, healing wounds, and even waterproofing sandals in a pinch. You've been chosen to help open one today for inspection. You grab a chisel and gently chip away at the wax seal. It flakes off in chunks, releasing a pungent wave of smell, sharp, tangy, almost like cheese left too long in the sun. You suppress your gag reflex, which is something of a sport down here. You peel away the cloth and peer in. The paste is thick and beige, with the consistency of mashed dreams. The cellar master dips in a reed, sniffs, and nods. Still good. Add a pinch of dried chili next time. Keeps the worms away. That's the tip of the day, apparently. And possibly a folk remedy. Historians still argue whether the Incas actually flavored their medicinal pastes or if that's just a case of archaeologists misreading spice racks as shrines. You reseal the jar and step back, stomach still doing a slow cartwheel. One of your fellow workers leans in and whispers, "Better than the fermented corn bin." You nod solemnly. You've smelled that bin once. Just once. Afternoon rolls in, though you only know it by the rhythm of tasks. The next job is rotation. Every 2 weeks, part of the cellar has to be shifted, baskets moved, stacks rearranged, older potatoes brought forward. It keeps the food fresh and prevents hidden rot. And it is, without question, the worst part of the job. You grab a woven mat and start sliding baskets along the floor. Your arms shake under the weight, and you pause to catch your breath. Over in the corner, someone's invented a new chant to pass the time. It goes, "Potato up, potato down, hope this one won't make me frown." It's stupid, it's perfect. You join in on the third round. As the chant echoes off the stone walls, a large rat skitters across the floor. Everyone stops. Rats mean trouble, not just for the food, but for the spirits. The Inca believe rats are messengers from the underworld, or sometimes reincarnated relatives with bad luck. The cellar master hurls a stone, misses. The rat vanishes into the cracks. You all stare at the spot for a moment before continuing. Someone mutters a prayer to Pachamama, the earth goddess. You nod along, casually spitting on the floor to ward off bad energy. It's all very respectful, if not entirely sanitary. Later, you help place a thin layer of dried herbs over the most precious baskets. These include wild mint, muna, and tiny yellow flowers that smell like sunshine. They help keep pests away, but they also serve a ceremonial purpose. If the potatoes are a gift to the empire, the herbs are the wrapping paper. One of the girls asks why there are 3 stones in the far corner, stacked like a tiny shrine. You tell her they mark the spot where the first storage basket was ever placed decades ago, or so people say. Historians still argue whether this cellar has been in use for 50 years or 500. Either way, the stones never move, and no one touches them. Ever. You sit back and drink from your water skin. It tastes faintly of maize and something smoky, probably that time you stored roasted guinea pig too close to your lunch. No regrets. There's a sense of rhythm to the whole day. It's not glamorous. It's not even particularly comfortable. But down here, you're part of something vast. A hidden machine. A place where cold stone and human warmth make a strange kind of harmony. You lean against the wall, letting your muscles unclench for a moment. Somewhere above, the empire hums. Armies march, messengers run, nobles feast. But none of it happens without the quiet work happening right here, in the dark. With your hands deep in the kingdom's knobby evening creeps into the cellar the only way it knows, how, by turning the air colder and the silences longer. There are no windows here, no golden horizon or chirping birds to mark the passage of time, just a gradual tightening of the chill, and a kind of settled quiet that seeps into your joints. The potatoes don't notice, but you do. You're brushing dust off the latest batch of Chuno freeze-dried potatoes that have gone through the Inca's signature survival process. You remember how they were made, spread out under the stars in high mountain fields, left to freeze overnight, then stomped by barefoot farmers in the morning. Again and again, over many days, until every last drop of water is forced out. You chuckle at the memory of your cousin screaming the first time. He stepped on a half-frozen Chuno. He said it was like squishing a baby llama. He also swears that the mountain spirits heard him and still mock him through the wind. You haven't had the heart to tell him it's probably just the wind. Still, the process is brilliant. Chuno lasts for years. It weighs almost nothing. You can stew it, grind it, trade it, even carry it into battle. There's no potato product quite as hardcore. And yes, it's basically a prehistoric tater tot without the crunch. You're stacking the dried tubers carefully in their baskets. Juno never gets piled too high, or it crumbles when one of the younger workers asks something. Simple but smart. How do we know it's done drying? You don't miss a beat. You lick it and wait for visions. They laugh, but seriously, you're not entirely joking. There's a story about a farmer who hallucinated a jaguar dance after eating chuno too soon. Then again, he might have just had altitude sickness. Historians still argue whether certain Inca food practices caused spiritual experiences. If the spiritual experiences shaped the practices, kind of a chicken egg Pachamama situation. Someone sneezes behind you loud, wet, and unapologetic. You all freeze. Not because of germs. No, this sneeze came from the side corridor, the one no one's supposed to enter without permission, the room where tribute offerings are stored. You glance at the others. The sneezer is frozen in panic. A moment later, the cellar master appears, walking slowly, deliberately. Everyone shifts back into their tasks. You go back to your chuno. Suddenly very interested in dust patterns, the cellar master says nothing, just stares at the boy, then hands him a broom. Sweep it, he mutters, twice. It's the closest thing to forgiveness you've ever seen from the man. Still, everyone avoids the tribute corridor for the rest of the night. As you wrap up with the chuno, you take inventory with the scribe. He's counting by hand and rope, tying knots in a kipua system of cords used to record everything from taxes to llama births. You watch his fingers work, amazed. There's no writing system here, no alphabet. But this man can record a shipment of 32 baskets, 5 damaged tubers, and 2 jars gone sour just by adjusting the tension and spacing of little strings. He lets you try. You mess it up in 2 knots. He sighs and fixes it, muttering something about creative math. That's when a murmur starts near the far alcove. A traveler's arrived. You turn to see a cloaked woman, face hidden in the shadows, carrying a tightly wrapped bundle. She's come down from the mountain passes, walking who knows how many leagues to deliver these potatoes. She says nothing as she presents the bundle. To the cellar master, he nods, gestures for you to help unwrap it. You kneel, hands trembling a little, and peel back the cloth. They're blue, not purple blue, not navy. These potatoes are a deep, electric blue like lightning frozen into root form. You've heard of these before. Sky potatoes. Grown only at terrifying altitudes, where the wind shrieks like ghosts, and only the bravest farmers dare go. You ask the traveler what they're for. She looks at you, eyes glinting. Ceremony, she says, for the eclipse. Then she's gone, just like that. No food, no water. Just her cloak and the silence she leaves behind. You're not even sure she was real, as you gently set the sky potatoes aside. A flickering lamp reveals a design carved into the wall. You've seen it before, a spiral with 4 arms, each tipped, with a tiny triangle. Some say it's a map of the empire. Others say it represents time. You say it looks like a potato trying to do cartwheels. The truth. Historians still argue whether these symbols were practical records or spiritual codes meant for the gods. You turn away, brushing your fingertips along the stone. Cold, steady, permanent. The final task of the evening is checking for rot. Not glamorous, but necessary. One bad basket can poison a feast or weaken a platoon. You gently dig through the layers, sniffing for the sour-sweet stench of decay. You find one, it's subtle, just a soft patch, slick to the touch. You hold it up. The cellar master nods. Feed it to the pigs. Which is, by the way, a euphemism. You don't have pigs. You have wild dogs that occasionally prowl the edges of the compound, and one particularly mean llama with a taste for trash. You dump the bad tuber into the compost bin, sighing. Not every potato gets to be royal. At last, the cellar settles into rest. Torches are dimmed. Conversations fade. Some workers sleep here, curled in wool blankets near the warmth of the fermentation jars. Others, like you, head up the tunnel, boots scraping softly on the stone. The air grows warmer as you ascend, and you catch your first breath of outside air, thin, dry but blessedly open. As you pass the entry guards, one offers you a dried mango strip. You survived the day, he says. Again, you take it. Bite off a piece, and let the sweet chewiness fill your mouth. Behind you, the cellar doors close with a low, sacred thud, and somewhere deep inside, beneath layers of silence and stone, the potatoes wait. You don't return to the surface for long, just enough time to stretch, drink from a goat bladder full of bitter chicha, and shiver under the fast-setting Andean dusk. Then it's back below, always back. Tonight's job, the fermentation trench. It doesn't sound exciting, and that's because it's not. The trench smells like old soup socks and regret. But fermentation is essential. Without it, the Inca pantry wouldn't survive the winter. The mountain crossings, or awkward diplomatic banquets where everyone pretends to enjoy whatever paste just hit their tongue. You kneel by a shallow stone pit lined with coarse clay. In it, bundles of potatoes, mostly the softer, starchier type sit submerged in a thick brine, bubbling quietly like they're muttering secrets. You prod one gently with a stick. It jiggles ominously. This is tocosh, a traditional fermented potato paste. It's been sitting here for, you're not sure, months, a season. One of the older workers says the longer it sits, the more powerful its healing properties. Another swears his cousin once cured a cold and a broken heart with a single spoonful. Historians still argue whether tocosh was really used as medicine, or if that's just a fancy excuse for its funky taste. You stir the pit slowly, letting the gases escape. A bubble pops with an enthusiastic blorp. You try not to breathe through. Your nose, across from you, someone jokes that if you inhale too much, your dreams will smell like pickled ghosts. He's probably right. Next to the trench, slabs of stone are stacked with jars of preserved mash. It's hard to tell what's in them once it's fermented. Everything takes on the same greyish-beige mystery hue. You lift one of the jars, weigh it in your hands. The clay's still warm from yesterday's sun, now trapped inside like a memory. You ladle a small scoop onto a woven mat. Tonight, this will be mixed with herbs, maybe llama fat, and spread onto the sore muscles of messengers just returned from sprinting Inca trails. You respect those runners. They carry quipu messages across mountains in sandals made from plant fiber. You get winded just thinking about it. Beside you, the master fermenter, old woman with 2 teeth and the patience of the moon, pulls out a fresh bundle. She unwraps the leaves, revealing tiny, finger-like potatoes, no longer than a thumb. Joint, for babies, she mutters. These were fermented gently, just enough to soften them, not enough to ruin their sweetness. She smears one across her palm like lotion and nods, satisfied. You wonder what makes someone specialize in fermented potatoes. Was it passion? Punishment? A bet gone wrong? One of those life choices you make while squinting at your reflection in a puddle and muttering, "Why not?" Somewhere behind you, a flute plays, soft, wavering, like a bird with a stuffy nose. It's not uncommon. Music in the cellar helps keep workers alert, breaks the monotony, and some believe keeps the spirits content, or at least less cranky. The melody wanders through the cool air, brushing past racks of drying skins and half-sorted seed baskets. You glance up at the carved niches in the walls, some hold tools, others offerings, and one, curiously, a dried bird skeleton posed like it's mid-hop. No one knows why it's there. It's just always been there. You're told not to touch it. You do not touch it. You take a moment to inventory the strange potato types laid out near the trench. There's the long, red kawai, which curls at the tip like a wizard's toe. There's Puma Nav, the puma's eye, named for the dark, scented spot in the middle of its skin. You even find one with two distinct bulges, like a snowman doing a headstand. The Inca catalogued over 4,000 potato varieties. You've seen maybe 300, and every month, some new farmer from a forgotten valley shows up with a potato shaped like a duck or tasting faintly of mint. One old man once brought a tuber so bitter it made 3 soldiers cry. He was promoted immediately. You move deeper into the trench area to check on the fermentation lid-smooth river stones used to press the mash deeper into the brine. Some are carved with little spirals or animal symbols. No one's sure if that affects the fermentation, but the superstition is strong. You always use the snake stone for spicy potatoes, and the frog stone, well, that one's cursed. You don't ask questions. The trench crew breaks for a quick chew of coca leaves. You place a few in your cheek, letting the gentle bitterness seep into your gums. It doesn't get you high, but it sharpens your mind, loosens your joints, and makes this whole fermented mash splatter gig slightly less depressing. A younger girl nearby has wrapped her coca pouch in potato skins instead of cloth. It's not common, but not unheard of. Potato skins are surprisingly durable. Some scholars even suspect they were used in early footwear linings or for temporary bandages in a pinch. Others dismiss it as creative recycling. Either way, the girl's pouch is holding up fine. Someone asks if the trench is ever haunted. You snort, only by your last mistake. Still, you glance over your shoulder. It's easy to imagine faces in the flickering torchlight, to hear whispers. In the bubbling mash, a few workers believe the ancestors watch over the fermentation, that the depth of the trench mirrors the underworld itself. You respect that belief. You also respect staying busy enough not to think too hard about it. You return to the task, hands moving automatically now. Check texture, skim film, rotate stones, murmur small blessings. There's a rhythm to it, almost meditative. If you ignore the smell, as the work winds down, you pour out a sample batch for the healer to inspect. She dips her finger in, smacks her lips once, then gives you a nod. Still needs 2 moons, she says, but it won't kill.